If I were to die tomorrow, would I still worry about this thing? It can be a conscious choice how stressed you are, reflecting back on the day and consciously looking for the good things you've done instead of just letting your mind chatter going around automatically. On cold shower is still stress, but it also releases some of it. What's my outcome from my morning routine? How do I want to feel? What do I want to gain? That's my routine. Cold shower, daily card, gym journal, and then yoga asana practice.
With yoga, it's yoga practice, not yoga perfect. So
And the goal and objective is to have more energy. If you're tired, to get more energy, you need to rest. You actually have that capacity to find those root causes in your mind. What is stressing you? What are those things? And then you can learn to reframe what's happening to you and release it. And breathing, always breathing.
yes,
Both Jedi and Sith, they use the same force. The difference is how they use it, for what purpose, and the same thing for the stress. You can use stress to make yourself more productive, more focused. Or if you drink way too much water, it can kill you if you overuse it. Yeah,
got it. Because if you wanted to nail it and if you were being
yeah,
perfectionist about that, that could actually be very
yeah,
stressful, right? Wanting to nail that
exactly.
that flow, right? The first thing, you got to get conscious to where you're at, right? You got to actually be conscious. A lot of people are
Hmm.
walking around like brain dead, like nums. It's like they're totally switched off to the world.
Hmm.
People who I see that are in flow, they love what they do. They're passionate about what they do. They have something bigger than themselves that they're living for, right? They have this passion and purpose.
As you make a decision that where you are is enough to start the journey and eventually find yourself being one of those people who do actually love what they do and love what they do and have that bigger meaning.
A lot of people, they're very hard on themselves. And I know particularly,
Mm.
high achievers, sometimes it feels like no matter how much you do, sometimes it feels it's not enough. Right. And we can be really,
Mm.
really hard on ourselves instead of acknowledging ourselves and saying, well, actually, you've done amazingly. And they go, oh my gosh, Aldwyn, how do you do what you do? And I think, well, geez, there's still so much to do. It's like I feel like I've only
Hmm.
just started, It's about enjoying the journey. Be committed to
Mm.
what you want, not attached to how that's going to look. And for a lot of people, stress happens when they are attached to how they want something to look.
That was a simple way of me getting into gratitude. At that time, I wouldn't call it gratitude yet because the feeling I got after this exercise wasn't really like this overwhelmed, feeling good gratitude. It was more like, okay, it's not so bad. The best times of the day when the program it is just after waking up or just before going to sleep, because those are the times when your subconscious mind is most able to take influence.
Now, interestingly, for a long time, I was getting about sort of 4 to 6 hours sleep was about my average,
Hmm.
and I was going okay with that until I crashed. That
Also, quite often it's doing what you think is right for you.
no one can actually cause you stress. Really, it's only what you allow, right? It's only what you allow to
Yeah.
stress you. So it's actually taking that responsibility.
So that's another thing to pay attention. You can adapt what you do, but you also can adapt how you do it. And most of the times, it's more important adapt how you do it.
So powerful. Smile and be present, and have cold showers if it feels good for you. Even if it starts
If it
warm
makes
and
you
then
smile.
if it makes you smile. Exactly. I love that. Hello, Aldwyn Altuney here. Welcome to Media Queen TV. We have a fantastic guest with us all the way from Latvia today. We have Toms Astahovskis coming to us, and he's a mindfulness and yoga coach specializing in problem solving for overthinkers, stress management, and tarot. And I love the topic that we're going to be chatting about today. This is something I think a lot of people are going to benefit from today, Toms. Flow versus stress. How in control are you? Welcome, Toms.
Welcome, Aldwyn.
Th- Thank you for joining us today. It's so great to have you. And of course, here at 7:30 p.m. on the 27th of July, 2022, here on the Gold Coast. And for you, what time is it right now?
It's 12:39 in Latvia, Riga,
12:39. It's about so about 7 hours
in
behind us
Saudi,
on the
7
same
hours.
day. So it's lunchtime for you and dinner time for us.
Yeah.
But fantastic we can connect like this. Now, Toms, I'm curious about your background. You mentioned you were born in Latvia. So can you explain a bit of
Hmm.
your upbringing? What was your upbringing like in Latvia?
So I studied electronics in university, and then at the last year of university, doing my master degree, I got internship in Japan. So I spent 1 year in Japan. And after that, I was just before that actually, I was working as a programmer in a company doing web design. And after that, I realized that I want to travel, learn languages, and I went volunteering all across the Europe. And during these travel years, I started practicing yoga, eventually started teaching yoga, and as I was progressing towards my life and trying to figure out what I'd want to do, I did less of a programming, less of a web design, and more of a coaching
Wow, quite a
in the short.
diverse background you've got there. And what was your
Yeah.
family like? What was your family upbringing like?
So I have a younger sister, and in the beginning, first 10 years, we were living in a countryside. So I was playing outside in a small village and climbing trees and just exploring and just being really in tune with nature. And around 10 years old, we moved to the capital. So more social life, more concrete, and completely different environment. So I got to enjoy best of the both worlds, being in nature and close to nature, and also being in city and being busy and lots of things happening around.
Sounds like an amazing time you had growing up. And how did you get into this
Mm.
topic of, flow versus stress? Were you stressed as a child at any point, or have you had some really stressful points in your life where you've sort of had to go towards looking for how you can find more flow? Or, how did you become fascinated about this topic?
So I was mostly the interest sparked me while I was traveling as volunteering a lot. So that means changing place every couple of weeks, every couple of months. And also was living in a hostel where there's always something happening, new people coming all the time. There was kind of overwhelm of things happening all the time. There was like literally no rest for me. At the time, I was volunteering at some point. I started managing the hostel, so I was responsible for everything happening in there. Meanwhile, I was also doing freelance web design on a free time, and at some point, I realized also I want to take care of my physical body, be physically fit and strong, and I started practicing yoga. And yoga was the one thing that made me to start think about these things, how to relieve stress, how to become more spiritual, how to be more serious, and um, also get into the flow because I was practicing vinyasa flow, and that's really in tune, being in tune and aware of the breathing and breath, and that was kind of a physical side of it. And as I was on my self-development journey, figuring out what do I want to do, I discovered that I really love coaching. And when I was searching for my coaching niche and the flow came up as a term or as a thing I'm interested in. And as a programmer, I already knew what it means. And now I just realized that I can actually apply the same feeling in the same state in basically everything I do, not only programming or dancing or in my yoga practice, that I could actually apply it literally talking to you.
So, for those who don't know what flow is, can you explain a bit about what is flow?
So flow would be state of ease when you're just letting things be as they are while following your intuition and doing the things that need to be done, and would be opposite overthinking when you kind of think, should I do this, should I not? uh, if the idea comes and it's aligned with what you want to do, if it's aligned with your outcome. And for me the flow is really linked to some outcome or goal, because if you don't have a purpose, it's you still can be in the flow, but it's harder to cultivate it, harder to make it on purpose. However, if you're on a purpose, then everything that goes along to fulfill that purpose, uh, you're letting it flow, you're letting it come out naturally, and you're letting it just be. And that's basically state of mind, quite often characterized by losing sense of time, feeling really good, having lots of progress, um, and these kind of things usually come up when you describe the flow. And it could also be described from what it is not. It's not working hard, being stressed, having headaches, and overthinking, thinking, am I doing it correctly? Am I good enough? It's is a sweet spot between challenge and boredom.
Yeah, I like that description. That is awesome. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to stress. We probably don't need to explain what stress is.
Mhm.
Although I know in
Mhm.
my life I've certainly had a lot of stress, and being a journalist for many years has been quite a high adrenaline kind of profession to be in. And for me, particularly the last few years, it's been really important for me to learn ways to actually slow down, to allow flow, and to get more out of my head and more into my heart, which is where
Mhm.
time disappears, where I'm in the moment or in the zone. And I love doing interviews, for example. I can lose track of time here very easily because I'm totally in flow when I do interviews and when I'm speaking and things like that. So I guess, there's many different ways probably to find flow. Yoga, I think, is a great way to do it. Yoga is, a fantastic way to sort of slow the mind down, slow the body down. Particularly restorative yoga, I've found really, really good for myself. And then doing things
Mhm.
like retreats and actually taking time out, or even meditating, doing nothing, and sometimes just sleeping. Sometimes listening to my body if I'm feeling stressed, just taking that time out to just rest and not feel guilty about that. Actually slow down to speed up, as they say. It's a great saying, slow down to speed up. And when you get in
Mhm.
flow, it's amazing how much can happen when you're in that state. So, what are some ways that you can recommend for people who maybe do have a high stress lifestyle, maybe who haven't been coping so well with COVID the last 2 years and what's been going on with the state of the world? In fact, it's been so stressful for a lot of people that we've actually had 4 times the suicide rates in the last 2 years
Mhm.
since COVID's happened. So normally 1 million people take their own lives. Now it's been 4 million people. So clearly a lot of people have been in stress, so much to the point that they've actually taken their own lives. And meanwhile, there's so many others with depression and have family issues and things like that. So what kind of advice would you give people to help them, let go of that stress and to get more into flow for themselves?
Well, I like how you framed the question. Let go of the stress. And for me, that's a mindset thing. However, if you have built around this encouraging environment and habits, then you don't have a capacity. That means taking care of nutrition, taking care of healthy habits, doing exercises, and starting with a physical release of the stress. For some people, could be running. For some people, could be yoga. For some people, as I said, it could be sleeping, just taking a rest, just tuning into the body and feeling what body requires. And the goal and objective is to have more energy. And if you're tired, to get more energy, you need to rest. You need to let it rejuvenate. And then once you're rested enough, then you can start doing things that actually raise your energy, like doing exercises, running, going to the gym, practicing, dancing, anything that's fun, anything that cultivates you feeling good, basically. Whatever that usually makes you feel good, makes you feel energized. Meeting with friends, that's also really a good thing to get rid of stress. Having social support, because most of the time when people are stressed, they're in their heads, they try to isolate themselves, try to do everything on their own, try to control everything. And the solution is opposite of what you think you need to be doing. And usually having even a pet, some any kind of social connection, dog, cat, friend, maybe a therapist, coach, if you don't feel like you have anyone to trust, just connecting, and that would be the first thing. Another thing would be sometimes it's really important also to change the environment. If you're lucky enough to be able to do that, changing your environment, what kind of information you consume, maybe not watching that much news, um, maybe just listening more to inspiring people instead of watching news. So all those small things, they contribute towards releasing stress. And once you're, let's say, well nourished, well fed, you actually have that capacity to find those root causes in your mind. What is stressing you? What are those things? And then eventually you can learn to reframe what's happening to you and release it, and realize that maybe that's not that serious, or maybe that's not important. Maybe you can ask yourself some empowering questions like, Will I worry about this thing in 5, 10 years ago or after? Or
Yes.
if I were to die tomorrow, would I still worry about this thing? And these kind of things kind of bring you back to the present and breathing, always
Yes.
breathing.
Breathing. Oh, it's the simple things, isn't it, really? It's like
Mm,
we've been conditioned to live in drama. The media programming, I
mm,
call it, that we've had from a young age has been conditioning people to live in fear and live in drama, to live in a stressful state. And it so doesn't need to
mm,
be like that. If you think about the people who lived in the tribal villages and things, the women went out and picked the berries, the men went out hunting, they came back and celebrated and ate, and then they had a party around the
mm.
fireplace, and and made love and had babies, and life goes on. Like it was all pretty simple. But nowadays the way
Mhm.
life is, there's a lot of stress for people, particularly financial stress. I think there's a really big issue for a lot of people, and leads to a lot of relationship breakdowns. So it's really interesting just to notice where you're at. And, the topic of today's interview, flow versus stress, how in control are you? I love that. How in control are you? Because a lot of people are not conscious to how they're doing life. They're not conscious. Are they in fight or flight mode, or are they in this flow state? And, it's probably natural, I would say, Tom's, at times where maybe oscillate between the two. Would that be correct? I mean,
Yeah.
is it really, can you expect to be in flow all the time, would you say? Do you think
Well,
it's
certainly answer is no. I would
right?
say I would
Yes.
say you cannot expect yourself. And if you do expect yourself to be flow state all the time, you're certain to get disappointed at some point when you get out of
Uh-huh.
this flow state. And then
Yes.
by being disappointed, you cultivate that negative energy, and that brings you out even more out of the flow state and makes it even harder to get back in there, and makes you more stressed and brings you back in the cycle. And I think at this point, it's also really important to understand the stress and how it works. And my favorite way of explaining it is there's positive stress and negative stress, because most of the time when they say stress, people only take the negative side of it, like in a Star Wars, the dark side and light side. And
Yes.
it's the same force. It's the same force. Both Jedi and Sith, they use the same force. The difference is how they use it, for what purpose, and what's the outcome it. And the same thing for the stress. You can use stress to make yourself more productive, more focused, to actually reach for those targets, reach the goals, set and overcome challenges, overcome difficulties, grow. The problem becomes when you get too much stress, and it's getting too much out of your comfort zone. When your skill set, let's say, is less than the challenge you're facing with, then you're too much stressed and you're overwhelmed and you don't know how to deal with. And that's you want then at that point you need to reduce the challenge or increase your skill, or actually do the both at the same time. However, if you don't have enough stress, if you kind of avoid stress completely, at some point you get just bored. There's nothing motivating. You're just sitting on couch. There's no meaning in your life. There's no excitement. There's nothing moving you forward, and that's also stress, because you're confused, like where my life's going. There's nothing happening, and it can be like lack of stress can be stressful and brings you even more in lack of stress, or too much stress is stressful. So stress is kind of a really general term, and I would like to people look at it as it can be good and can be bad, and it's always, as always, everything in a measure. So too much of anything is becoming poison. Like for example, water. Everyone knows you should be drinking water, should be having water during the day, 2 liters, 3 liters, whatever the depending on the body weight and temperature and climate and everything. However, if you drink way too much water, then you can die actually from being overhydrated. Literally, you can die from it because there's no electrolytes in your blood anymore. Like you flush things out and you have no conductivity, and basically you die. And the first time I heard about this was when I was researching about drug use. Like there are certain, I don't remember which ones, but like some kind of drugs, you use them and then you're really thirsty. And in order to flush things out, you overdrink and then you can die just from overuse of water.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
And even
Wow.
like healthy thing like water, it can kill you if you overuse it. But you have to like
Wow.
really overuse it. You have to be. Like you have
Right.
to be really like pushing it because naturally body tries to preserve it. And so you wouldn't drink like 10 liters of water normally, or 20 liters, whatever the amount, I don't remember, but you wouldn't drink that much water normally. You actually need to force yourself to make it actually lethal. But also other thing, not enough water also isn't good. You get all kinds of different problems. So it's always same with the stress. You have this sweet spot
Mm.
in between, and that's where the flow happens. Flow happens in that sweet spot when there's not enough stress, but not too much.
So it's like when the yin yang, if you think of a yin yang symbol, you've got
Yeah,
the dark in the light
yeah,
and the light in the dark. When that's all in perfect
yes,
harmony, that's probably where
yes.
flow happens, right? And it's probably like
One
the
more thing is that,
80-20 rule too. Yeah,
mm,
sorry. Go
yeah,
on.
one thing I want to mention about the yin yang is that sometimes also people try to put the things on a pedestal and try to find this like a perfect one thing, and it's not like that. It's actually band in between. So you don't have to have perfect like synchronicity, like everything has to be perfectly balanced. Actually, as you said, it's 20% in between. So it's not like 1%. You have to nail it. No, it's like 20%. So anywhere in between, you're still in a float, in a flow. Yeah,
Got it. Because if you wanted to nail it and if you were being
yeah,
perfectionist about that, that could actually be very
yeah.
stressful, right? Wanting to nail that
Exactly,
that flow, right? So so it's
exactly.
about noticing, isn't it? It's about noticing. And thank you for those that have joined us right now, whether you're watching on Facebook,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, or YouTube.
Mm.
Please let us know where you're joining us from. And if you have any questions for Tom's around flow or stress, please pop in the comments and we can add you to our live stream, add your comments to the stream and make you part of the show that we're putting on here. I love this conversation, Toms. This is so cool. And the first thing is really to go from flow to or stress to flow or flow to stress or either way. The first thing you got to get conscious to where you're at, right? You got to actually be conscious. A lot of people are
Mhm.
walking around like brain dead. They're walking like unconscious people. They're like I call them num-nums sometimes. I see some people walking around like complete num-nums. It's like they're totally switched off to the world.
Mhm.
Generally I like to see the best in people, but I must say sometimes I do wonder. I scratch my head and I kind of think, what the hell is going on with the world right now? But the beauty is, while there's some people that are burying their head in the sand about what's going on in the world right now, there's others that are waking up and there's others that are speaking up and speaking their truth. And I think flow, what I've noticed with people who I see that are in flow, they love what they do. They're passionate about what they do. They have something bigger than themselves that they're living for, right? They have this passion and purpose. And
Mm.
how important has that been for you, Toms, with what you do, passion and purpose?
Well, it's a big part of it. However, when you're beginning any kind of journey, you're not there, so it's kind of like have to be careful about these things. Yes, when you have a deep meaning what you do, you have a bigger purpose. When you love what you do, it's way more often. It's much more easier for you to get into the flow, and it happens way more often. Or for the people who just starting out or just woken up and got into this topic, the flow state they will experience will not be that often, and it will not be as vivid. So, and that can be disencouraging if they expect immediately to get there. So, what I would say is just accept where you are and just practice. It's a skill. You can develop it. Might take time. Doing those simple things, just noticing where you're at, just being present. That's one of my mantras, be present. And just starting by acknowledging where you are and setting goals where you want to be, whatever that is. Some people are really um, confused about setting material goals. They don't want to set them. Don't set material goals. Set emotional goals or other intellectual goals. Whatever works for you. And just having anything to look forward will move you forward. And the journey itself, just observing and trying to acknowledge where you have been, where you are now, and where you want to be. That just it's enough for the beginning to the journey. And over time, as you commit, as you make a decision that where you are is not enough, is enough to start the journey and eventually find yourself being one of those people who do actually love what they do and love what they do and have that bigger meaning.
Yes, love that. And that's the thing is a lot of people they're very hard on themselves. And I know particularly,
Mm,
high achievers, if you're a high achiever out there watching this right now, then what happens often with high achievers, and this has happened with me many times through my life, is that sometimes it feels like no matter how much you do, sometimes it feels it's not enough. Right. And we can be really,
mm,
really hard on ourselves instead of acknowledging ourselves and saying, well, actually, you've done amazingly and you've achieved this and this and this, and you've done the, I mean, people look at my life and they go, oh my gosh, Aldwyn, how do you do what you do? And I think, well, geez, there's still so much to do. It's like I feel like I've only
mhm,
just started. However, it's not all about the doing either. It's about the being while you're doing, right? How you're being
mhm,
in that experience. It's about enjoying the journey. And there's a great saying I heard in a landmark course that I did. They talk about being committed, not attached. Be committed to
mm,
what you want, not attached to how that's going to look. And for a lot of people, stress happens when they are attached to how they want something to look, right? So actually letting go of that
yeah.
attachment is a big challenge for a lot of people. So with Thomas, in your life, what are some things that where you've noticed in some of your story in your past where you've had some stress that maybe has been negative or not such good stress, and how have you turned that around for yourself? What are the steps that you've sort of gone through for yourself to turn stress into flow? Oh, sure. Okay. So, what are some things in your life, looking back at your life, look at some of the challenges that you've had in your life where maybe you've felt the stress more than negative stress rather than positive stress, where you felt negative stress? What is the step by
Mhm,
step ways that you've pulled yourself out of those
mhm.
stressful situations, or even just one stressful situation? If you can think of something from your own life that you could share about how you've actually gone through that process and found flow where there was stress before.
What I can really resonate with what you said just a moment ago was about that expectation or high achieving and doing things. And there was a quite a long period of my life when I was doing things, and just at the end of the day, before going to sleep, I would still focus on the things I want to do or I haven't done yet, and that put me in a really stressed state. And actually, I wouldn't rest. I wouldn't have quality sleep because of that, and that's a really bad thing, and that brought me some health issues because I was in a stress during the day, and as I was going to sleep, I was still uh, making myself guilty or not enough that what I did is not good enough. So I was still going to sleep with this mindset of, oh, I should have do that and still should do these things and that things, and that brings you into this loop of not even resting while you sleep. Your mind is still solving those problems, and the simple exercise that helped me a lot was just before going to sleep. Uh, even that, even just starting with the one thing just before going to sleep, reflecting back on the day, and instead of focusing on what hasn't been done yet, focusing on what have I done, and soon after, I start focusing on what I have done, what's my day been look like. I realized that actually I've done quite a lot. I have achieved lots of, almost everything, or if not more than I actually wanted to do, and that kind of brought me down from the stress and felt like, okay, I did a lot of today, and I still want to do many things tomorrow. However, I can, because I did quite a lot, and that was simple way of me getting into gratitude. At that time, I wouldn't call it gratitude yet because the feeling I got after this exercise wasn't really like this overwhelmed, feeling good gratitude. It was more like, okay, it's not so bad. Like, people from UK usually say, "How are you doing?" Not so bad. So it was more like that. Oh, okay, this day wasn't so bad. So that was the feeling I
Yes.
got while starting out. So okay, it's not so bad. And over time, when you actually start appreciating more, the emotional scale and range of emotions I experiencing did expand, and at some point I actually started feeling gratitude. Oh, I really had a good day today, and allowing myself to actually say, yeah, I did a lot today. I still want to do more, and tomorrow I'm gonna do more, but it was enough for today. And I think that was the single biggest thing that actually got me out of the perpetually being stressed during the day and during the night as well. Because if you're not rested during the night, then next day you're not fully productive and you're performance goes down, and you get even more stressed because you think you should be performing, but you're not.
Yes, I love that. And that's the other thing is that a lot of people have some kind of subconscious story that I'm not good enough, I don't belong,
Mm.
some version of that, right? I haven't done enough, whatever it is. And it's just the fact is just notice those conversations because when we go to bed, it is so incredibly powerful how our subconscious works. And I know that some very successful people I know, what they do is they plan the next day the night before and then they let their
Hmm.
subconscious mind work out subconsciously how they're going to get all that done the next day in a streamlined, effective way. And actually writing that down, what there is to do the next day, actually gets it out of their head and you brain dump it onto the bit of paper or a journal or whatever it is. Because the thing is in business, if you're in business, which is one of what they say, one of the most stressful things you'll ever do, right, business can be very challenging. And this is why only 80% of businesses survive the first 5 years. And then the next 5 years, only 80% of those survive is because it's a very, very stressful thing for a lot of people. And also with business, it's something that there's always more to do. There's always more we can be doing at any point. And so you could get to the end of the day. Like I'm actually thinking now I've got a massive list of to-dos, right, for today. And so this is gold, this conversation, because after this, I'll allow myself a section of time to get some of these more crucial things to get those things done, because I know I've got another full day tomorrow. And if I don't do it today, there's going to be another 2 days till some of these things get done. So working around your energy and noticing the conversations in our head and all that kind of thing is so, so crucial. Absolutely love this. And that power of when we sleep, what happens with our subconscious mind. Do you know much about the science behind that, Tom's, about, when we're sleeping, about how important it is to have some really good rest?
How I like to explain it most of the time is we have in our brain this part called a reticular activating system, and basically it's responsible for seeing patterns in your life, and it communicates with the other parts of the brain to decide which information is relevant and which information is not relevant. And even just I always focus on vision. Like even our vision is so complex and there's so much information coming in. There's peripheral vision. You can see things around. Even if you're focusing straight forward, you still can notice something's moving. And most of the time, that information is not important unless you're a spy. And then you specifically try to see any small changes, any movements in peripheral vision, and then you're training yourself to notice those things. Even if your eye gaze doesn't change, you still have quite a good awareness of what's happening around you. So same thing happens with this reticular activating system. You basically, with questions and habits and practice and thoughts, you can program it to tell your brain what's important to you. So it brings up the things that are important to you. And it often, the fastest way of doing it is asking emotionally charged questions. Uh, so I know one of the usual examples how it works in daily life is you buy a new car. Let's say it's a red car, and suddenly you start noticing exactly that car and even red color of that, and you start noticing how much of it you see on the streets, even though before you had the car you didn't notice it. So you are, by buying this car and really loving it, you're programming your brain saying this is important, notice this more, and you start noticing more, and every time you see it you feel grateful. And that's one way how it works in just regular life, but as I said, you can actually program on those things. And the best times of the day when to program it is just after waking up or just before going to sleep, because those are the times when your subconscious mind is most able to take influence. So just framing yourself with good questions or just feeling gratitude or just thinking, as I said before, reflecting back on the day and consciously looking for the good things you've done instead of just letting your mind chatter going around automatically on still focusing on the things you have to do because that's the automatic pattern throughout the day. It's consciously making the decision. No, now I have like this 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. I need to wind down, prepare myself for sleep consciously, and then I'm gonna ask myself productive questions and express gratitude or whatever is gonna program my subconscious mind to actually see some solutions to rest, rejuvenate. And yeah, that's one way how to explain how the subconscious mind is just this part of the brain which decides which patterns are important and which patterns are not. And there's so much information coming into the brain, and we're not even receiving consciously most of it. It's just a small percentage, even just from vision. And then there's all these things called intuition, sense perception, like feeling that there's someone behind you, and then turning as you feel like there's something coming. All this a bit more fine tuned, but it still works the same way. You have this sense of feeling that there's something important, and it's, I would say, subconscious, because there's much more that we perceive, and it's about training what's important, what do I want to perceive, what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yes, great answer. It's like the iceberg, isn't it? The top of the iceberg is our
Yeah.
conscious mind, and all the bottom is our
Yes.
subconscious mind. And we are so incredibly powerful. They say we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, Toms. I'd say women probably have a few more
Yeah.
than men because our minds are often going a million miles an hour. And apparently, around 90% of those are the same thoughts we had yesterday, and 80% of them are negative for most people. So I would imagine if they're negative, a lot of
Mm.
people are in those stress states, which is really
Yeah.
interesting to notice. And so when it comes to sleep, then how much sleep do you think we need, Tom, so that we maximize this flow state of life?
So I think that's uh, depends on your mindset, because I've seen many different people, many different examples. There are few people who can uh, sleep only 3, 4 hours a night, and they're perfectly fine. And depending what's how's their rest of the day looking like, maybe they meditate a lot, maybe they do all kinds of other practices. But my answer to this question, there is no one number that I can tell to any person. As I said, there are people who 3, 4 hours is enough. There are people who sleep 5, 6 hours. There are people who need 7, 8, and there are people who need 9, 10 hours. So depending on what kind of stories you have in your mind, what you think you need, or and then of course there's another side of the coin, is what you have trained your body, what's your body type. And my belief is that over time, and with enough tension, attention, and intention, you could change your body and physiology and everything. You could change to whatever you want, but it might, if for example, if you're starting from 9 hours going down to 3 hours, might be really, really difficult task to do, and maybe it's not worth the effort to actually get there. So I would say, see where you are at the moment, what amount of sleep you actually feel it's needed for you. What you When you wake up, okay, I rested, I feel energized during the day, I'm not falling asleep, and I have enough energy to go through the day. And when I wake up, I'm also don't feel like tired from oversleeping. So first step would be deciding where you are, and then deciding maybe you want to change something. And if you do want to change something to having more or less sleep, then I'm positive that there is a way to change that. The question is, are you willing to do the work necessary to do the change? Maybe cutting down half an hour wouldn't be that hard, but if you want to cut down from 9 to 6, maybe it's too much effort and not worth it. So that would be my answer. It depends.
Great answer. It's interesting. Ariana Huffington did a book a while ago saying, "Oh, we need at least 7.5 hours sleep, at least 8 hours sleep, etc." I can see Tracy here. Good to see you, Tracy. I'll share some of your
Mm,
comments in a minute. Beautiful Tracy Corbett. She says
mm,
8 hours sleep for her. Now, interestingly, for a long time, I was getting about sort of 4 to 6 hours sleep was about my average,
hmm,
and I was going okay with that until I crashed. That's kind of tended to be my habit in life. It's like go,
yeah,
go, 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 and then crash. And then when I crashed, then I'd maybe
hmm,
sleep for a whole day, or I'd sleep for
mm,
extended periods of time. And so it's noticing those patterns too. But when I went to a presentation about sleeping one time here on the Gold Coast, they said at this presentation that if we are to have shorter amounts of sleep, it's best that we do it in 90-minute bursts, so that we either sleep, if you're going to have a nap, have a 90-minute nap, or a 3 hour nap, 4.5 hours, 6 hours, and 7.5 hours, or 9 hours. Because what happens in that 90 minutes, apparently our REM, or our deep sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, that happens at about 45 minutes into our cycle, into a
hmm,
90-minute cycle. And so I started to play with this, and I noticed it that at times when I was sleeping for sometimes for 7 hours or for 8 hours, it actually was harder for me to wake up. I'd get more tired sometimes sleeping 8 hours, than if I slept 6 hours. Or instead of 4, if I slept 4.5, if I made sure I got that REM, that deep sleep at the 45-minute mark, by not disrupting that pattern, then I found that I felt a lot more energized and I felt more ready to wake up. Whereas if it was at 8 hours, I was right in the middle of a deep sleep, I would not want to get out of bed, you know. So just noticing those patterns of behavior and what works best for different people. As you say, some people are fine on 3-4 hours sleep and they go just fine for years. Who knows how they do it? Maybe they exercise a lot and meditate a lot and do a lot of yoga, which I'd say would extend your life too, wouldn't it, Toms, if you did yoga a lot?
Certainly, it releases lots of stress, yoga. And I wanted to add there are a couple of stories of like really exceptional cases when there are people who have uh, rare cases of insomnia when they literally not sleep at all and they still can function perfectly. Like there are some rare, really rare cases, but it is possible. It just shows you the amount of possibility. And yeah, it's about what kind of things you have in your body and subconscious mind and how well you deal with it and just observing and doing. Also quite often it's doing what you think is right for you, because if you deep down have this voice in you that says I need let's say 9 hours of sleep, and you try to do no, I'm going to do 7 hours of sleep and it's going to be enough, and you're kind of resisting yourself. And as long as you're doing that, you're not doing any kind of service. You're just basically um, shooting yourself in the foot. So it's being present and seeing those stories in the mind and that support. And by that, you basically reprogram your subconscious mind, reprogram your beliefs, and make it more likely to actually do this journey. So as you said, you started doing research, you found really convincing evidence that worked for some people, and then you start playing around, soon found out it works also for you. And by this, you start actually playing around and getting in those states and adapting to the
Yes.
reality you want to be.
Yes, exactly. And so now I set my alarm to either 6 hours or 7.5 hours if I need to
Mm,
get up early. Most times I don't even set
mm,
an alarm now. And that's a whole thing too. If you have a buzzy alarm that goes off in the morning, that immediately can put you into fight or flight, right? If you've got a
mm,
full on alarm. So now my alarm that does go off is a very gentle, natural sound. So I'm waking
mm.
up very easily. And in fact, I heard someone say today that they do not set alarms because if they set an alarm, it means they're not trusting themselves, which I thought that's an
Yeah.
interesting take on things. It
Mm,
shows you're not trusting yourself if you set an alarm. Well, I mean, hey, that's an interesting concept. Do you set
mm.
alarms, Tom?
I set alarms very, very rarely. Only when I like when I know that I have gone to the bed really late and I know I have to wake up really early, like catching a flight or having a meeting. When I know that my average sleep would be around between around 6.5, 7 hours on normal. These days it changes over time, but at this time I know that my average is between 6 and 7. So if I go to sleep later than those 6, 7 hours, and if I know I have cut down on my sleep on days before, I know that sooner or later I will need to catch up on that sleep. So when I know that that's due to happen, and I really need to wake up early, then I would set alarm. However, in daily life, I don't set alarm. I wake up when I feel rested, and then I go on to the day. Sometimes I do wake up before I'm rested, and then I wake up, I see the time, and I see, okay, I really need to start my morning practice, my morning yoga practice, and all these things in order to do all the things I want from the day. However, I still wake up on my own most of the time. So yeah, I just do it on those rare cases when I know I have to be awake and I don't want to risk oversleeping. Other days, I don't need alarm because most of the time I do wake up on my own. As you said, I trust myself to wake up, and usually it
Yeah.
works well.
Yes, and a good trick too is to actually leave your curtains open or blinds or whatever you have
Mm,
in your room, and so that you've got the natural sunlight coming in or the
yeah.
sunrise. I must say, this morning I got up to go to the bathroom. I think it was around 5:36 a.m. and I saw the beautiful
Mm-hmm.
sunrise. I just naturally got up to go to the bathroom, saw the
Mm,
sunrise, and then went back to bed because I was still tired. So went back to bed. But I had a
mm-hmm.
moment of glimpsing
Yeah.
at the sunrise. And I mean, imagine every day, waking up and seeing that beautiful sunrise or they say there's a sunrise and a sunset every day, and it's our
Mm,
choice whether we show
yeah.
up for that, right? To see the magnificence around us. And that's the thing too, is what are we going to choose to focus on in our life? Are we going to
Mm,
see the sunrise and the sunset, or are we going to focus on the few things in life that may stress us, and it's probably us stressing ourselves, because actually no one can actually cause you stress, really. It's only what you allow, right? It's only what you allow to
yeah.
stress you. So it's actually taking that responsibility, and rather than blaming someone else for your current stress, whether it's the world or governments or the media or whatever it is, people love to blame others for what's going on, for the dramas in the world.
Mm,
And noticing what are you choosing to focus on in every moment, and is it actually making you feel good, or is it you do feel crap? And we are 100% responsible, right? So Toms, you mentioned your
yeah.
morning practice of yoga, etc. So can you run through what is your morning practice? What do you do in the morning to energize you?
So these days, a lot of my morning practice has been changing over time. However, for last 6 months, I've been always starting my day with a cold shower, and I don't have any specific time. Like, for example, I've been following Wim Hof method for a while. For those of you who know about it, he recommends to do it 1 to 2 minutes and gradually increasing it. However, for me personally, that's not the outcome. For me, the outcome is just to train my discipline and just completely wet myself with the cold water, my body. Just having that is enough. And then how much I feel on taking that cold water. Sometimes it's 30 seconds, sometimes we go up to the minute. I never timed it. It's not important for me. It's, as I said, it's the discipline. And sometimes when I feel like pushing my limits, getting a bit sick or weaker, then I would have that cold shower, but to have it like really short time in order not to put too much stress on my body, because cold shower is still stress, but it also releases some of it. So I play around with it. I'm really intuitive and kind of in a loving way, uh, just to have my body completely wet, and that's enough. And however I feel each day, I stay there for a while. That's the first thing. Second thing I do is I pull a daily tarot card. I really love tarot and gives me something to focus on throughout the day, and it also sometimes gives you some insights. Like whenever I'm going through a day and I have some question or doubt, which direction should I go? Which how should I make this thing happening? Or when I'm overthinking or something, I can always come back to that one card and think, is this card helping me in any way to have a positive outlook on situation? So I always pick a daily card, and I've been doing it for more than 5 years, almost every day, unless like it's really exceptional. Every day I pick a daily card, so that kind of gives me an idea or something to focus on. If as I said, programming my conscious and subconscious mind to what to expect from the day or what kind of things I can encourage. Sometimes I ask specific questions if I know that some specific actions I have to take during the day. So I have like asking for advice. How should I do this thing? And then I shuffle the deck and I pull a card. That's another thing. And then I also keep a dream journal. If I remember any of the dreams, I really value them and try to write them down. And my belief behind that is, if I do remember dreams, that there's something important that my subconscious mind is telling me, and I should value it. So I write it down. And after that, once these things done, I'm going for my yoga practice. And also since January, I've been practicing Ashtanga yoga. So it takes usually hour and a half of yoga asana practice and keeps my body fit, energized, and that's my routine for these days. I've been doing all kinds of other stuff before. Sometimes I do jumping, sometimes do other stuff, but since January, I found it really complete for me for having this set of routine, set of actions to take. It keeps me building my strength, my muscle, keeps me flexible, and it fulfills what I want from my body. It keeps me at the level of fitness I want. And that's one of the things I've been asking myself. What's my outcome from my morning routine? How do I want to feel? What do I want to gain? And a couple of years ago, my outcome was slightly different, and my routine was shorter. So I didn't expect myself to be in maybe that good shape, or I didn't expect certain yoga asanas to be able to do them. Now I expect myself to do them. So that means I have to keep higher maintenance. And I just want to say that because depending on what's your outcome, what you expect from yourself, how do you want to feel, your routine might be completely different than mine. So keeping that in mind, uh, routine gets adapted. So that's my routine. Cold shower, daily card, gym journal, and then yoga asana practice.
Love that. Wow, so much in that. The yoga, I absolutely love yoga, I must say. And with yoga, it's yoga practice, not yoga perfect. So don't compare yourself to others, right? Notice if you're in your yoga class and you go, oh, they're stretching more than I am. And oh my goodness, I can't even reach down to my knees. You know, any of
Mm,
those conversations going on in your head, right? Everyone's got their own individual ways of working your body, and do what feels right for you. And I love going to
mm,
yoga classes where they say, you know, do what feels right for you. If you want to go into child pose now, you do child pose. If you want to go in upward dog, or, you know, whatever it is, then do that. You know, do what feels
mm,
right for you. Back to that again, right? Love that. And with the cold showers, now I've been having a hot shower and then I do the cold shower at the
mhm.
end. So do you also do a bit of hot water as well there, or just go straight into cold?
I'm going straight to the cold. For me, the main thing is to get my body cold and wet, cold. And another thing that motivates me doing that is I consciously program myself to feel hot when I wake up. So I wake up really feeling hot most of the times, and I want to cool my body just before waking up. Or like wake up and cool myself, and especially my eyes, because I love going into saunas, and we have sauna in the countryside, and I'm used to having saunas. I know how important it is for eyes to be cool. So after waking up, they're quite hot, and I want to actually treat them with some really nice cold water to make them healthy, to relieve the eye pressure. So that's why I'm going straight towards the cold, just for my eyes mostly, and then the rest of the body as well. And that's why I go just for the cold. However,
Uh-huh.
for different people, they have different outcomes and different ways of doing things. And as I said, it's a really contrast. Like for me, get you like really feeling hot, going into the cool shower. It's a certain feeling I get. It's a bit of adrenaline. You feel like a bit stronger, kind of masculine energy, and that's what I want to cultivate in myself when I wake up. If you feel like more gentle that day, if you feel like feminine, or just taking it easy, or just having like this maybe a bit of fever or whatever, like feeling of I might catch cold soon if I'm not careful. Maybe I'm stressing myself so much that I have to be careful. So in those days, it might be better to start like, okay, I start with a warm shower and then I gradually turn it down easy, and I still get that cold shower, but it's coming really easy without that hit. So it's more gentle for everybody. You still have the same outcome having that cold for a couple of seconds, but the experience is completely different. And that's what I'm
Mm.
focusing on, is what kind of experience I want to have in my life. And it comes back to the yoga practice. Like every day I do the same asana, I have a sequence fixed. Every day is the same thing. However, once in a while I do get some injuries from overdoing myself, or not taking care of my diet. So something happens, and I have a pain or something in my body. So I have to adapt my practice, how I do it. I don't change what I do it, I change how I do it. So sometimes I'm going really soft, slow, and really gentle, all the movements. And some days I just like really fast and really paying attention, really pushing myself. So that's another thing to pay attention. You can adapt what you do, but you also can adapt how you do it. And most of the times it's more important adapt how you do it. Is same thing here. Like I do have a shower, that's what, but the how you do it. Do you go gradually into it, or you go really straightforward cold as much as you can? Maybe you want to start lukewarm and then completely cold. Maybe you want to stay lukewarm the whole thing. So that's really important how you do it.
Yes, how you do it, the experience. I was having such a good shower here the other night. I had the hot shower
Mm,
going. I was loving it. I had that loved that hot water. Anyway, I was loving
yeah.
it so much that next thing I know, all the fire alarms went off in the whole house from the steam from the shower. I thought, okay, it must be time to get out of the shower now. So
Yeah.
that was a beautiful experience that suddenly turned into a crazy experience, and it just happened to be
Yeah.
like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I woke everyone up in the whole house. So that just added added to it, you know. So yes, it's interesting. So now I have my little timer, and I make sure that the door's shut where the smoke alarm is, and let the steam out the window. So, yeah, so that was interesting. I love how you say that. That is so cool, and the feminine, masculine of that's beautiful too.
Yeah.
Now on the Gold Coast in Australia right now, we have
Hmm.
winter here, and the other day
Hmm.
I one thing that really energizes me is getting into the ocean. And the other day
Mm.
there was no one else in the ocean, and it was quite a cold day. However, I just felt this urge, I've got to get myself into that ocean. And so I threw
Mm.
myself in and threw myself back out just about as quick, but that was like as close as I got to an ice bath recently was getting in the
Hmm.
ocean. And
Yeah,
I tell you what, I was so invigorated and energized from that. And that's the thing, is
definitely.
noticing what is it that really wakes you up? Because I kind of feel like if I'm feeling flat at all with my energy, I'll either get to the ocean or I'll do yoga, or and suddenly I'm just rejuvenated and back into it. It's very, very powerful. So I
Mm.
love that. And beautiful Tracy here. She says, I've realized that when I'm matchmaking and inspiring others, that I am in my flow. Some with coaching and same with coaching and counseling clients. It's a flow. All day while working in the office today, I've realized that I felt like I was being as I was doing. It was a beautiful thing. Oh, that's fantastic, Tracy. You were being while you were doing. I love that. And then she says, I was recently reminded to stay in the present moment. Instead of being in the past or in the future, being is perfect, I feel. Thank you. I will praise myself more for all that I have achieved and achieve moving forward. Yes, Tracy, you're amazing. And another high achiever. In fact, Tracy runs Two's Company International, amazing matchmaking service Australia wide. And
Mm.
she's been in business for 26 years. Extraordinary and amazing lady, very dear friend. So great to see you here, Tracy. Thanks for joining us there. And for anyone else joining us, if you have any comments, questions, feel free to share here. If you've got any questions for Toms, is there anything else you want to share around this topic, Toms, around flow versus stress that we haven't covered? We've covered quite a bit of ground already. Loving this conversation. What is it that people really need right now? What do they really need now around, letting go of that stress, and how can they get more into flow? Any other magic bits of information you can give us there?
So I would love to tell something that people sometimes don't want to hear, especially when you're in really low state and really stressed. Uh, that's actually not the best thing to say to people in those states, but however, I do want to specifically tell that stress is a choice. It can be a choice. If you're really stressed, then it's actually not a conscious choice. It's subconscious choice, and by staying there, you're just following the momentum of stress. However, it can be a conscious choice how stressed you are. And that's why the question, how in control are you? Because it's under each and every one of us control to choose how we see the things happening to us or for us. Even the small switch in the word we use. There are many, many things and many tools to apply to not to feel stressed when it's not necessary and feel more in control, because that's another thing. For those of you who really want to be in control of your lives, you have to be present, you have to be aware of what's happening inside of you, and then you have to take control and make those decisions. Whether you are stressed, how much stressed you are, because too much stress or not enough stress, you're not going to be in productive state. So I have to make the decision, where do I want to be and where I am, and take that courage and realize that it is and can be a choice. It's about skill,
Yes,
and anyone can develop it. That's another thing. Anyone
absolutely. Mm.
can be in that really flow state, and it's just about making decision. That's where I want to be, and just going for it.
Yes, decide or choose and just do it, right? Just be in that state, be in that flow state, and and half the thing is just noticing when you're not in it, and how do you want to feel right now? And
Yeah,
it's a choice, a moment by moment choice, isn't it? Moment by moment choice. I'm very curious what your tarot card was today, Toms. Do you have your tarot card there by any chance?
I have it with me as well, and it was Hermit. I
Hermit.
have this. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, Hermit. Hello, Hermit.
So yeah, it's a Hermit.
And what's the message behind Hermit? What's Hermit saying today?
So let me answer you the question in a different way. Uh, the tarot card without the context has so many
Uh-huh.
meanings that there is no meaning at all. Like it's a
Ah,
very archetypal thing. So unless you put it in a context, it could mean anything. There's so many things. Even if you look at this card, there's so many details, so many things happening in the background that without the context,
ah,
it's really hard to tell what's the meaning of this card. So that's why
yes.
when I do any kind of tarot coaching sessions, it always starts with a question to frame it, to narrow what's the meaning of this card. And there are some generalizations. Like for example, for this card, there's this keyword meditation, which means going towards more inward, self-reflect. So those will be general meditations instead of going out and connecting with people or um, being outgoing and trying to project everything outward. It's more like, okay, now it's time to turn inward and assess what's happening and meditate. It doesn't mean that you cannot have both. It's just that how I use tarot cards, it's more like an inspiration for a day. When something happens and I have doubt which direction to go, then okay, I have this encouragement to go inward. So that would be a general choice. However, uh, it could mean many things. It doesn't mean that I have to
Mm.
meditate whole day long. Maybe it just means, okay, an afternoon when I have an invitation to join a party, in night, should I go to the party? And then the answer is maybe I shouldn't because I have been invited to self-reflect.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
consciously assigning
So
it
I'm just saying
meaning.
that
Yes.
I'm assigning the meaning. Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
can
got
choose
it.
whatever meaning I want based on all the meanings I know, or just looking at the card intuitively and seeing what pops out based on a
Yeah.
background. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I love Hermit actually. Hermit's a good one for me too right now because, I look at a lot of my life. I've been,
Mm,
running away from myself actually a lot of the time. I've been avoiding intimacy with myself and others for
mm,
years. And more recently, I'd say the last few years, I've really been actually taking time to be with myself and actually enjoying my own company and enjoying those quiet times with myself, enjoying meditation. I had this story for quite a while. Oh, I'm no good at meditation because I had a million thoughts going on in my head all the
mm,
time, and I found it really hard to just quiet those
yeah.
thoughts. However, again, it's a practice, isn't it?
Mm,
It's a practice to actually
yeah.
quiet those thoughts and to notice the thoughts that come up as well. And so I love that hermit card. There's a lot of power in that. And I love the beams coming, the beam
Mm,
behind there. There was a lot of power in that.
yeah.
And that's the thing. We don't need to run around from place to place to place to place to feel like we're doing a lot in life. Like we can actually get a hell of a lot done, a lot more powerfully just by meditating and being a hermit, right? Being at home and
Yeah.
and doing some empowering stuff, on ourselves and in our home environment even. So that is a beautiful card there, Toms. Now, for those who want
Mm.
to work with you, Toms, where do you do your yoga classes in Latvia? Or do you do some online as well?
I mostly do them online these days.
Okay. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
And how can people join you with your yoga classes?
Just contact me. Most of the time I spend on LinkedIn or Instagram. However, if
Okay.
you go to my website, there's contact information. You can contact me anywhere. I have WhatsApp, Telegram, and everything. So yeah, that Linktree link. So
Uh-huh.
I'm everywhere, and just contact me and get in touch and see how can we work together.
Okay, brilliant. And so with the yoga classes, how do you do that online? Like, do people pay to come to classes or do you do some free classes or how does it work online?
So at the moment, it works like I mostly focus on individual private sessions these days.
Okay. Okay.
I had some group classes once in a while as well, but these days I'm mostly focusing on private individual coaching sessions, giving them necessary tools so they can start practicing on their own, because that's my outcome and goal. And at
Okay.
some point, I might be also returning back to regular morning classes as well. At the moment, it's mostly private sessions.
Private sessions. Nice. One-on-one. That's specialized. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Fantastic. So reach out to Tom's if you would like that or just want to have a chat.
yeah.
Reach out on his links here. Connect with him. B.astmens. be.astmens.com/linktree. You'll be able to see all his links over there. Or I'm sure just Google him. Tom's is on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook. What other social media are you on, Tom's?
Yes. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram are mostly used. I'm also on Twitter. I don't use it almost ever.
Uh-huh.
I basically have accounts almost everywhere. It's just that wherever you are, try to find me there and connect how it's useful for you.
Beautiful. Love that, Toms. Thank you so much. It's been so great chatting with you. And you'll be interviewing me shortly for your podcast. Can you share a bit about your podcast and how people can find that?
So I have a link to my podcast on my same Linktree website, and the podcast is called Love Your Stress.
Love Your Stress.
Yeah, this is kind of my website of a Linktree version when I put all the important and necessary information to reach me. And yeah, you can find the same place. Everything's there.
Fantastic. Love Your Stress. And after this, Toms will be interviewing me about me loving my stress. So that'll be an interesting interview. Let's see what comes out of that one.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being our guest here, Toms. Is there anything finally you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just smile and be present.
Yes. So powerful. Smile and be present. And have cold showers. If it feels good for you. Even if
it makes you smile.
If it makes you smile. Exactly. I love that. Oh, fantastic. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you, Toms. Thank you so much for being
Likewise.
our guest here today. Please do connect with Toms. For those who've enjoyed this today, if you have enjoyed it, please let us know what you got out of this interview today. Let us know in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or if you're listening to this somewhere online, please pop in the comments there. What did you think of this today? And if you enjoyed it, please share the love. Also, you can connect with me on linktree/Aldwyn. I'm on all over the socials as well. linktr.ee/Aldwyn. I do several ongoing events. We do events teaching people how to get free publicity. We do mass media tribe meetups, all sorts of amazing events. So please stay connected there. We have a global good news challenge that happens every month where you can get into gratitude. You can choose to get into gratitude and share it with the world to not just lift your energy, but lift the energy of those around you. And you'll find full details of that in the Global Good News Challenge Facebook page. We also have a Conscious Community Global Facebook group as well. We've got so many amazing links there, life-changing documentaries in that Conscious Community Global Facebook group. Featured in the featured section there, you'll see some things that will blow your mind. So go check it out and let's stay connected. As Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And as I say, shine bright and light up all those around you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you again soon on Media Queen TV, and check out our other 800 plus videos now on our YouTube channel as well if you haven't subscribed yet. Media Queen TV, inspiring truth and good news. Thanks once again, Toms, and thanks for those watching us.
Aldwyn.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye for now.